Chapter 29 Vengeance. Major D hadn't become boss of the Slasher Boys without some guile and cunning. But his defining characteristic, some said his Achilles heel, was his capacity for swift and completely ruthless violence. Most people starting a war with a man regarded as one of the cleverest criminals in the country might have sat down and put some thought in. But D was angry that Sasha had made him look foolish. And while the Mad Dogs were a small crew, D was all too aware that they had informants everywhere. He reckoned the only way to ensure complete surprise was to attack immediately. Once they ditched Aaron, Michael and Colin took part in a mass ring-around of Major D's most trusted associates. Within an hour, a meeting was taking place in a private room above the Green Pepper, and by the time the sun had dropped, Michael was part of a posse, with 4 vehicles gathered in an empty lot behind a fried chicken shop and a car wash. The lead car was a dilapidated Range Rover with huge bull bars over the headlamps. The 18-man crew was tooled up with everything, from baseball bats to machetes, and the pride of Major D's gun collection, a Scorpion ultra-compact machine gun. D was paranoid about traders and made it clear that he didn't want anyone ringing out on their mobile phones. Michael managed to sneak into the filthy bathroom at the chicken joint and text Maureen Evans to say that something big was going down. But D had given no clue about the target. The only sure thing was that people would get seriously hurt. The Mad Dogs' first team were 3-0 up, which made Sasha Thompson happy enough to embrace sweaty players as they headed into the clubhouse at half-time. Bruce was playing away with the under-15s, but James and Junior had turned out to train for the Sunday League side. The first team and the various Mad Dogs youth teams took their football seriously, playing in competitive leagues with proper kits, 3 paid officials, and an FA-qualified coach. In contrast, the 2 Sunday sides played in a local pub league. Their yellow kit was shabby because the first team got a couple of years' wear out of it first, and Thursday night training was usually nothing more than a couple of warm-up laps and a kickabout. The youngest Sunday players were James's age, whilst the oldest were flabby-legged men with rose-tinted memories of the first team behind them. James was no fan of playing in the cold, but once he'd accepted that he was going to end up muddy, he had a pretty good time of it. He was fit enough to sidestep all but one of the crazy tackles, and fast enough, at least in such mediocre company, to look like a half-decent footballer. On the other hand, Junior was a disgrace. James had sparred in the ring with Junior when they were both 12. He'd been shorter than James, but Junior had been lightning quick, and even with gloves on, you knew all about it when he hit you. But the intervening 3 years had seen James continue combat training while regularly running and lifting weights. Junior had developed a taste for cigs and a tidy cocaine habit, and the only time he ran anywhere was when the cops were on his back. Junior was still young enough to look okay, but he struggled to keep up with the ball, and a 60-metre run down the wing left him doubled over, hacking phlegm onto the ground between his boots. As the Sunday team headed into the changing room for their halftime break, James was called inside the clubhouse to speak with Sasha. This meant he didn't get a chance to check his mobile in his kit bag, where he would have picked up a voicemail telling him to call Maureen urgently. James felt edgy as he ditched his muddy boots in the doorway and walked to the small bar in his socks. The Mad Dogs had the smartest clubhouse in their league, and Sasha acted like lord of the manor, propping up the bar with a brandy in hand and the Mad Dogs FC's trophy cabinet at his back. Nobody else was in earshot. "Drink?" Sasha asked as James got close. James was out of breath, and Sasha reached behind the bar to grab him a bottle of Coke. As he pulled the lid with a bottle opener, James propped himself on a stool. "For God's sake!" Sasha yelled. "Get off there!" James shot up and saw that his muddy shorts had left a brown mark on the stool. "Sorry," he gasped. "Haven't you got any sense?" Sasha snarled as he tried brushing the mud away with a bar towel. The towel was damp and made everything worse. Kids these days. If this doesn't brush off when it dries, you're paying for a new stool. James didn't know where to look or what to say, but he knew it wasn't a good sign when the three other men in the clubhouse headed for the exit. "What happened out there with you and Wheels today?" "Things got untidy," James shrugged. "We didn't lock the shop door, and this old dear—" "Who's we?" Sasha snapped. "Who was responsible for locking the door?" "Well, I was the last one in, so I guess it was me." Sasha grunted. "So Wheels told you to lock the door?" "No, but I guess it was obvious." "Not if you're nervous and you've never done something like that before," Sasha said. "He definitely didn't tell you to lock the door." "No way." "I had Wheels round my house earlier. He's trying to say that you messed up. And the little piss-taker even tried getting me to pay towards having his car resprayed." James grinned slightly, unsure if he'd get his head ripped off if he laughed. "Wheels is a good lad if you keep him on a leash," Sasha said. "But he's too casual about details, and he likes to lay the blame. As far as I'm concerned, you're the new kid, while he's been around for a few years. If something goes wrong, the only thing I want Wheels to do is doff his cap and say, 'Sorry, boss.'" "I'm not a baby, though," James said. "We messed up, and I'll take my share of the blame." This seemed to be what Sasha wanted to hear. As James placed his empty Coke bottle on the bar, Sasha reached around and grabbed him another. "Cheers." "I've been asking around," Sasha said. "Orman droid down at the parole office pulled your file. Apparently you never cooperated with the cops, and you never gave the screws an inch while you were in young offenders. A couple of Keith Moore's old mates also told me you're solid." James didn't know what this was leading up to, but he couldn't help smiling. The mission required him to feed the cops information on who the Mad Dogs were and how they operated. Winning Sasha's trust made that a whole lot easier. "What do you like with electronics, computers and stuff like that?" Sasha asked. "I can use them, but I'm no boffin," James said. "Do you think you could handle it if I asked you to rig up some CCTV equipment and keep tabs on who's coming and going at a certain address?" "I suppose," James said. "As long as I've got all the instructions and that." "Yeah, of course you will. I'll pay you 30 quid a day. Once you've set up the cameras, I want you to go in every day and skim through the recordings. I want a written log of who's coming in, who's going out, and how many people are putting money through the letterbox to buy drugs." Drugs," James nodded casually. "It's a hard front," Sasha said. "You know what a hard front is?" James did, but he wouldn't have known if he wasn't a cherub, so he asked Sasha to explain. "A hard front is a place where people deal drugs. Sometimes it's a house, but usually it's a flat in a multi-story block. The dealers put steel reinforcement up behind the front door, bars over the windows, and keep the curtains shut 24/7. There will always be 2 or 3 people inside. Business is arranged over the telephone, and people turn up at the door, push money through the letterbox, and get handed drugs. A hard front is a dealer's dream, and a policeman's nightmare. If the cops find the place and start picking up the individuals buying drugs outside, the dealers just buy another lump of steel and move to another flat. The cops can try taking the place by storm, but by the time they batter their way through all that steel, you can guarantee that anything illegal will have been flushed down the toilet or thrown over the balcony. The cops' third option is to video the dealers, but all you can ever film is hands passing stuff back and forward through a letterbox. As long as there's always 2 or 3 dealers inside, it's impossible for the cops to prove who was actually selling the drugs. The dealers all blame each other, and the case gets laughed out of court. Sounds neat. James nodded. It's tried and tested, Sasha said. Hard fronts are used everywhere, from Brazilian slums to Siberian ghettos. So what use is this surveillance to you? James asked. Sasha smiled. A dicky bird tells me the joint is also being used for some major heroin deals. If I'm going to get my mitts on that gear, I need to know what makes them open the front door. Gotcha, James said. Every dealer's got to bring the groceries home once in a while. Or carry a big pile of cash out, Sasha grinned. You're a smart boy, James. But James didn't want to seem too eager. 30 a day isn't a lot if you're planning to rip off a major drug dealer. Sasha bristled. I look after my crew, James, old son. If you do a good job, I'll see you get a cut. But don't go expecting fortunes in week 1. James nodded, but Sasha had jumped off his stool and was dashing towards the French windows along the front of the clubhouse. What the hell's that noise? Sasha asked as he stared out into the dark.